Hey guys, my name is Matt Johnson, and today I am so excited to bring you the second and final part of my behind the scenes of how I filmed my epic drone and time-lapse travel film of my trip to Iceland. So if you have not watched the first part, please click on the link down in the description below to watch that so you're not confused like, man, he's just jumping into things, this is weird. Please watch that first. Also, as I said, I did make a travel film of my trip to Iceland. It's only about 1.5 minutes long, super cool, I had a voiceover done, I'm so excited about it, it was so much fun to make. I would love it if you could check that out too. I will link it up here in the corner and down in the description. But with that, on to the second part of the behind the scenes. Hey guys, welcome to the morning of day 5, our 5th day here in Iceland. I am honestly kind of amazed that we made it to this point because me and Rachel both kind of feared for our lives yesterday. After we made our long trek out to the Glacier Lagoon, we had about a 3.5-hour drive back to our cabin. And we were doing fine for about the first hour and a half, and then we were both getting super tired. I drove for about an hour and a half, and then Rachel drove for the other hour and a half. And as she starts to drive, I'm looking out the window, and I see the strongest and most beautiful northern lights that I've ever seen. And I realize I've only seen, at this point, like 4 days worth of northern lights, so I haven't seen a ton, but from what I've seen still, like, this was easily the most intense and beautiful light show ever. Even as tired as I was like, I have to go out and film a time lapse of this. I can't not do it. I set up my A7S II in front of our little cabin that we're staying at, actually, and faced it toward the cottage because the northern lights were coming overhead. There was actually northern light strands going overhead, and then there was more often to the left too. It was hard for me to choose what to focus on because it was so pretty. But I eventually chose to focus on the cottage with the northern lights overhead because I don't have any little cottage shots yet, and I was kind of saving that one. I didn't think it'd look good just on its own, but hey, with the northern lights over, it looks really good. After shooting the cabin with a 2-second exposure.
That's the waterfall that way.
Oh, that's the waterfall that way? I don't see it.
It's a 4-star. If you want to go.
Oh, it is? Okay,
yeah.
Well, we gotta turn around then. Sorry, there's a waterfall back over here, and we decided to go to it. So, just did a little U-turn. Anyway, I was filming the cottage with a 2-second exposure at ISO 10,000, and then I also was doing an interval of 2 seconds in between each shot to make sure that it would have enough time to cycle the memory card. I wanted it to be really quick like that because I wanted to get the northern lights moving as quickly as I could. Once I got that shot and I was very happy with it, I switched over to another shot of the same rock that I'd actually time-lapsed the day before. But this time I moved further back, so now you get the rock and some trees, and I think it looks really, really pretty, and I got more northern lights from there. After doing that for about 20 minutes, I went back outside, and it was about 2 a.m. at this point. I was exhausted, and the northern lights were starting to fade. I couldn't see much, but I shifted again, so I had some trees in the foreground that looked really good, and there was the northern lights behind it still as they began to fade. I left that out overnight, just let it run. In case I wasn't clear about this, I've been shooting on a 24mm f1.4 Sigma art lens, open all the way wide open. Also, my white balance was set to 3200K because I find that looks best for the night sky. For these stops on day 5, because we're leaving tomorrow early in the morning to head to Paris, we don't have a ton of time today to drive super far, so we're focusing more on attractions that are close to us, namely the Golden Circle, which we still haven't been to. We're driving up through this lava field because there's the something waterfall. Everything's a Skogafoss or Skadafoss or Fjodafoss, I don't know. There's a lot of fosses. As long as the wind isn't too bad, we may fly the drone here. Trollkonuhalap. That's really pretty. Look at it. Over there. Look at that. Don't look at me. Look at that. We checked out the waterfall. It's very, very pretty, but it is also almost hurricane force winds here right now. We're gonna just keep on rolling here and go further inland. We woke up the morning of the 3rd day unsure what we wanted to do. We knew that we wanted to go either far east or far west, but the weather would dictate which way we go, because Iceland as a country, if one half of it is raining, the other half is usually not raining. We knew that within the next 2 days, we wanted to hit either the Glacier Lagoon to the east or the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to the west. Both of those names I'm sure that I totally butchered. Maybe not Glacier Lagoon, that's pretty straightforward. We heavily considered each option, and we decided to go west toward the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, which was about a 3-hour drive because we figured that the weather would be better there. It wasn't, initially. They tell you that the wind is strong in Iceland. They're not lying! But then it got better. The most terrifying part of this drive west was the tunnel. I don't remember the name right now, I think it starts with an H, but it's easily the longest tunnel that I've ever been in. It is incredibly long, goes under the water, and is relatively terrifying. We ponied up the $10, drove up through the tunnel to the Snaefellsnes Peninsula, where we started to see some of the prettiest and least touristy parts of Iceland ever. This was easily one of our favorite days. After driving for about 2 hours, we finally did quite possibly the most touristy thing that I think we've done this entire trip. Yes, we stopped and fed some horses. Why not? Because the Icelandic horses are so cute. They're not even really horses. Rachel looked it up. They're ponies, and ponies are great.
They're technically horses.
Technically horses?
If they're small, then they call them ponies. It's
Okay.
about the height, just to get it right.
They're technically horses. Something about their long hair, they look so emo. They're such sad horses, but they're so cute. I knew that I wanted to get a little bit of video of these horses. It did happen to be, yet again, hurricane gale force winds that were freezing cold though. I don't know how these horses survive it, but we were all bundled up and I got some great footage of the horse kind of staring longingly into the camera. The horses! Once we had that footage though, we continued on up and over a mountain pass to the north side of the peninsula. And that is where we filmed our first time lapse of the day. Okay, there's a really pretty mountain with clouds right over there, and I'm gonna set up the time lapse for it. So I am prepared with my jacket and my little mitten gloves and my hat. You may be able to hear the wind. It is incredibly strong. Here we go. Ah! It's hard to even open the door. Oh my gosh. Ah! Gonna set up the tripod here. We're on the other side of the car, which is blocking the wind. And the MacGyver type stuff you want to do when filming in Iceland. All right, you gotta give me the camera now, so we gotta record this thing.
But there is one name here. Their tongue is Dovahkiin.
I ended up using our rental car as a windbreak and set up my tripod on the other side of the car so that the car was blocking the wind. And I had this beautiful shot of this mountain peak and this frozen lake below it. It looked so cool. For this one, because the clouds were moving so fast up high, I set it to a 2-second exposure at ISO 100, shooting for approximately 15 minutes. And so that netted me 300 photos, and that looked really, really great. I also just used the built-in time-lapse app that's in the A7S II because for cloud shots, that works really, really well. Once we got down from the mountain pass, I had this beautiful shot concept of the volcanic mountains in the distance, and they were covered in snow with all this nice shadow on them, and there was this beautiful grassy field in front. And I knew that I wanted to either shoot a time-lapse or a drone shot, but I wasn't sure which. What ended up making up my mind and what I was envisioning when I was getting ready to shoot was whether there was anything interesting in the foreground. For a time-lapse, if I'm filming mountains, I prefer there to be something in the foreground leading your vision up to the mountains. Otherwise, the mountains are just in the distance and it can look a little bit flat. So instead of doing a time-lapse, because there was nothing in the foreground, I opted to do a drone shot because with a drone shot, you don't need as much in the foreground because you can make the foreground interesting by moving over it quickly. So in my case, I had a vision of flying the drone toward the mountains and it was gonna look really, really pretty. We've just driven over this entire mountain pass heading over this way. Now I'm gonna fly the drone because these mountains look incredible and the wind has died down a little bit. You can still see it's pretty strong from the beard wind, but I think the Mavic can handle it. I can always put it into sport mode to bring it back if I need to. With that initial shot in mind, I took off, began flying toward the mountains. It looked beautiful. It was so glorious. And then I realized that I wasn't actually recording. I'd forgot to press record on the DJI app. So I ended up altering my course and doing a pretty sideways shot, rotating alongside the mountains when I was recording, and I think that looked really, really good. Flight success. I did have to turn it back into sport mode to bring it back because it was so windy. But I think we got some really cool looking shots of these volcanic mountains. So major win. Settings wise for that is the same as I've done with all my other drone shots, 4K at 30 frames per second and ISO 100. I believe I was using the ND16 filter as well because it is very bright outside and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be overexposing the mountain peaks in the distance. Don't try this at home. Doing okay right now. It's sturdy. Oh, it's cracking. Oh crap. Hey, this is good. It's a good sign. Oh, no, that's gonna break. Oh, kind of surprised actually. Oh, no! As we were driving toward the northwest tip of the peninsula, there was some really beautiful waterfalls. And there was one that I really wanted to film, but because the wind was so high and it was so far off from me, I opted not to go for that. And as we continued to drive, I found another waterfall that was still very, very pretty, and it was much closer to the road. There's this awesome waterfall that's half frozen, and we're gonna try to fly up to it. Okay, holding steady here. Here we go. My shot concept for this waterfall shot was to do a push-up toward the waterfall and then raise up above it, because it had all these frozen icicles hanging down, and it looked really, really pretty, and I wanted to see what that would look like with a gentle raising motion. Then I turned around and did a reverse shot with the camera angled down, filming the water as it cascaded over the waterfall. The only con of those two shots was because I was using the ND8 polarizer filter, it was a little too dark with the way the clouds were, so I did have to boost the ISO up to about ISO 400 to compensate. Otherwise, settings-wise, I was shooting at 4K 30 as I always do. One of my goals when flying the drone is to never waste a shot. Even whenever I'm returning back to land, I still want to try to get a cool shot. So I was going there and I was almost back, and I'm like, oh wait, if I just pan up here, this looks really cool. This is a good shot. Anything that I can do to improve the quality and to get another shot whenever I can is always a win. I gotta turn right here. Yeah, toward Gullfoss. Today's our last day, so we're trying to do all of the touristy spots that everybody hits, because it's gonna be a shorter day for us because we have to fly out early tomorrow, so we didn't want to do a really long drive. We're going to hit Gullfoss, we're gonna hit Thingvellir National Park, we're gonna hit the geyser, we're gonna hit all the stuff that everybody else hits. We definitely still want to check this stuff out because, hey, it's Iceland, and I feel like you're required to at least look at those things. That said, I do know at the very least the Thingvellir National Park has restrictions on drone usage. You're not allowed to fly in the park. I don't know if that's a reason because there's some wildlife there, or if they just decided there are like 800 people here with drones and we don't want to deal with this. After filming the waterfall, we came up around this corner of the coast, and there was this incredibly gorgeous view of the tip of the peninsula with the sun setting, the clouds rolling by overhead. It looked so good. And I said, okay, we gotta stop here and do another time lapse. They warned us when we rented this car that we have to keep a hand on the doors, because otherwise the wind can blow them off. And this is one of those situations. Ah! We set that up, had it facing out over the water, and I ran it for about 15 minutes at ISO 100. I want to say I was 1/20th shutter speed. In general, for time lapses, whenever I'm shooting with different shutter speeds and dealing with different brightness, I always try to get the shutter speed down as low as possible. So 1/20th is good, 1/10th, 1/5 of a second even, because I like this smoothness that's introduced, especially for like cloud shots, having the smooth motion that comes from those longer exposure times rather than the fast motion that you get if you're at like 1/100th of a second exposure. One thing to keep in mind is that whenever you're shooting a time lapse, you don't want to have your shutter speed over 1/100th, because that can introduce a lot of motion blur and judder into your footage, and that doesn't look good. Continuing on up the road, the snow started getting more intense on the ground. It looked beautiful as the sun was setting, and we looked behind us in the rearview mirror, and I said, we need to film this too. Jumping out of the car, we launched the drone again, and I had a concept in my head. I thought of doing a push reveal of this beautiful valley with the ocean in the background and the sun setting, and having this beautiful shot that's gently revealed as I go up over this mountain cliff. The first shot, first 30 seconds of flying, I got it. And I was like, this is amazing, I'm so happy. After that, I did a couple more little shots revealing different degrees of the sunset from different angles behind different little mountain peaks. After that, I turned around and realized, oh man, there's some other beautiful shots in the other direction. I really need to cover these too. This is crazy. The thing is, you wouldn't even be able to tell that I shot these in the same area because they were just so different looking. Here goes a tractor. Welcome to Iceland. I feel like Iceland and Texas are the only two places where you're gonna see somebody just driving a tractor down the road and you have to kind of get out of the way of them. We came over this pass on Road 54 and there was this incredibly beautiful view of the sun setting behind us, causing all of the mountain peaks alongside the ocean to be lit up halfway. It looked so gorgeous because the valley was still lit by the sun, but everything up by us was still in shadow. I said, we're gonna do a little experiment this time because I'm tired of standing out there in the cold, freezing. I'm just gonna see if I can fly it from inside the car. I was worried about transmission and stuff, but I'm over it. We're gonna try it out. I think it'll be okay. Okay.
Take off. The home point has been updated.
This is so great.
Check it on the map.
It is working. That's good. I have to be ready to dive outside if I need to. Doing a little gimbal pan up here. Nice and slow. For my gimbal pans, I like to do them real slow because I can always speed it up if I need to. I just want it to be really gentle. Nothing crazy. There's the car. There's us.
Droney.
Yeah, you can see it. Here he comes. And I'm still warm. The only con of the second shot with the pan up that I had was that the wind was pushing so hard that the drone was actually forced sideways as I was trying to fly it forward and rotate up. I had it fully maxed to the left to keep it from going to the right, but it was still going to the right because of the intense wind. Settings wise, I was using the ND8 filter because I knew that it was not super bright out, but it was still bright enough, especially with the sun hitting those mountain peaks, that I didn't want that to be blown out, and I still wanted to shoot at 1/60th. Otherwise, settings were at 4K 30 like they always are. We're heading to Gullfoss, or Gullfoss if you're from Texas. Gonna go see this here waterfall. I hope I'm not totally butchering these names. We're here at Gullfoss, and this is quite possibly the saddest sign that I've ever seen. But that's okay, because it's also the first time I've seen it, and I've been all around a ton of Iceland now. If you're gonna come to Iceland, just don't fly in like a few of the major tourist spots and fly everywhere else and you'll be fine. It's a pretty waterfall, but I mean, there's also like 10,000 other pretty waterfalls in Iceland, so don't freak out about this one. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to fly the drone anyways because those winds are so strong and there's so much water being thrown up into the air that I'd be relatively worried about either the drone getting flipped by the wind or it just short-circuiting.
That's fucking weird.
It just gets the wind and messes with it. Another tourist attraction, another no drones allowed sign. I'll still look at this, but I'm not happy about it. We just finished looking at the geyser. Now we're heading on to Thingvellir National Park to check that out because that's the last stop in the Golden Circle. I think it's interesting that Rachel was more impressed by the Gullfoss waterfall and I was more impressed by the geyser. So I'm glad that both of us were satisfied in our own way. Well guys, we made it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful to you and given you some great insight into how I film a fun travel video, especially in a place as pretty as this. I mean, Iceland is amazing. I'm so glad we got to come here. I'm so glad we got to film this, and I'm so glad that we had even a bit of the forethought, a little bit, to film a behind the scenes of this trip because it has been so incredible. So thank you so much for watching. This is a behind the scenes video for, I'm assuming that I made a main fun travel film of a lot of pretty footage and things like that with pretty music and maybe a voiceover and all this other sort of cool stuff. So if you're just watching this behind the scenes video, please actually watch the film that I made too. I'm assuming that I've made one and edited it and posted it, so I'll include a link to that in the description if I did. As always, if you have any questions or comments about anything that we've done on this trip or any of our settings or any of our work or underwear, I don't know, anything at all, please feel free to get in touch below, leave a comment, or get in touch with me through my website, WhoisMatt.com. Lastly, as always, you can check out my wedding film production company, Filmstrong Productions, at filmstrong.com. No, we were not here filming a wedding or anything like that, but it was a fun trip regardless. Lastly, if you would consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel, that would be super stupendous and helpful, and I promise that I will have more videos like this in the future if you guys like them. If you want to see more behind the scenes stuff, not even necessarily of weddings, but of me and Rachel traveling around the world to exotic locations and filming time lapses and drone shots and baby seals. We didn't see any baby seals. Next time. And we didn't see any puffins either. I'm really upset about that. Oh well. You guys have a great day, and we'll catch you next time. Bye. Get out of here. Go away. I don't know what else I have here. I have so much junk to organize. But some of this goes into the drone gear bag. Do you guys like my custom gear organization system? Patented Walmart brand zippered bags. That's the secret to good organization.